Alright, so in this video we're checking out the GEPRC CineLog35 Performance. This is an updated version of the CineLog35. I don't think the original is being sold anymore. They are only selling this updated version. It only comes in 6S now with a new motor, 2105.5, I believe this is 2650 kV, which is interesting because the original version came in two versions, a 4S and a 6S. The 4S version was 2550 kV, which is actually lower than this one, but it was a 2004 motor. It was a smaller motor. That was one of the things that people didn't like about that model, is it felt a little bit underpowered, especially if you're carrying a full-size GoPro. It was okay. It was actually pretty good if you carried a naked GoPro. Probably overkill for a naked GoPro, but if you want to carry a full-size GoPro, which is kind of why you're going with a bigger prop here, you want to get a bigger motor. That 2004 motor was a little bit on the small size for the setup here, but it's interesting that the 4S version of that 2004 setup was 2550 kV, a lower kV, which also I think contributed to being kind of underpowered. And this one's 6S on a bigger motor at 2650 kV, and yeah, it definitely has a lot more power than that version. The 6S version of the original CineLog35 was 1750 kV, and of course they don't sell a 4S version anymore, but yeah, 1750 kV on 6S is kind of low. So that one also, I heard, even though I never flew that model, I heard that one also felt a little bit underpowered as well, even on 6S. So they changed the motor. The frame is the same except for the prop guards. They changed the color, of course, here, as you can see. The original black version, I'm told, was kind of on the weak side, would break pretty easily in some crashes. Honestly, I don't know what kind of crashes these were. Every crash is different, but I figured it's got to be a pretty severe crash if you're breaking prop guards. That one was pretty beefy, but when you put a GoPro on here, a big battery and everything, the weight does add up. And yeah, if you have a pretty severe crash, or fail safe or whatever, if you're going really fast, yeah, those prop guards could probably break. This one here, honestly, it looks like it's the same mold. It probably just changed the material. It does feel like it's a little bit on the stiffer side. The material definitely feels a little bit different, but whether or not it's going to survive a crash into a brick wall at 100 miles an hour, I'm not going to be testing that. Probably won't. This is not being advertised as unbreakable, but they're saying that it is a stronger material, so it should give you a little bit more durability for some of those I would categorize as minor crashes. If you're going to have a severe crash, pretty much everything's going to break anyway. So that's how things are in terms of FPV. If you want to break something, just go into a brick wall about 120 miles an hour and see what happens. A lot of things are going to break, guaranteed. Anyways, this is the Vista version here with the Caddx Nebula Pro. DJI, of course. They have analog available. And now they have a walk snail version available as well. No HD0 yet. I'm told they have a different pitch tune for each of the different versions because the weight's going to vary a little bit. And I think, now the manufacturers are kind of getting it, like each, weight's going to be kind of a factor in terms of how the pitch tune's going to go. Now, I actually did not use the recommended batteries. I couldn't fit my 1550 on here. It was a little bit that battery is really wide. And this is between the battery straps. So I went with a 1400, this new R-Line version 5. Pretty nice. Lots of power, no battery sag. So if you're looking for a good battery, try this one out. This one does fit on here. Flight time is going to be a little bit less than what they're advertising. They're advertising a flight time. You got to check the website. Remember, it's like 5 minutes with a full-size GoPro, I believe. It might got a little bit less, around 4 minutes on this battery. And I flew with the heaviest GoPro, of course, the Hero 10 Black. And yeah, if you want more flight time, go with a bigger battery, which these motors can handle, or a smaller camera for less weight, like Naked Hero. But I think that this pitch tune is actually meant for like the Hero 10 plus the 1550 LiPo, which this whole setup is going to be pretty heavy. For those of you guys that are hoping this would be sub 250. Sorry to break the news to you, this is not going to be anywhere close to that. So this is just the quad, or the Cinewhoop, with the camera mount, and it's already at 200 and about 280 Yeah, 285.6, so almost 286 grams. So I throw on the Hero 10 on here. This is going to be super heavy. And yeah, we're at 441 grams, and then we'll throw on this giant 1400 6S battery. 667.8. So this is how I flew it. So as you're seeing in the videos, this is the flying weight. So yeah, definitely nowhere near sub 250. Okay, so another thing worth noting, they did change the prop here from that gem fan, which had the bull nose, to this HQ 90mm propeller. It's got a little bit more of a curved shape there. It's not quite a full bull nose, and it's not, I wouldn't say less noisy. It's still pretty loud, but the shrill or the sound characteristic of this prop is a little bit more pleasant compared to the gem fan. In terms of power, seems to be about the same. I don't think the prop pitch or anything is all that different, although it all has this little curved shape here. Now, granted, this thing's way heavier than the original version with the full-size GoPro and the big battery, the big 6S battery. So, obviously, as you add more weight, it's going to get louder. But I think that the sound from this prop is a little bit more pleasant. So really didn't like the sound of that old prop. This one's a little bit better, but it's pretty much about the same noise level in my opinion. Okay, so here's the motor. I didn't show that to you earlier in the video. So 2650 kV, 2105.5. And I do have a set of these, I think, that I haven't put into anything yet because I haven't had time to do a build. But this is a pretty versatile motor. You could use this in a lot of different stuff. 3.5-inch Cinewhoop, obviously here, all the way up, to maybe a 5-inch ultralight, 4-inch ultralight. It's a pretty big motor, and I don't say it's super efficient, but it's okay. It's decent for the amount of power you get and the weightlifting capacity. But yeah, so quick look at the motor. So really, the bottom line here is the flight characteristics on this are quite a bit different than the original. A lot more power, a little bit more flight time, obviously with a bigger battery. I don't think I would be doing a lot of freestyle with this one. You'll see on the flight footage, I'm trying to do some flippy floppies, power loops, and split S's, that kind of stuff, basic stuff. But it's honestly, this is not really meant for that kind of flying. I think the extra power that's available to you here in this setup is mainly for handling things like wind, just being a little bit more, having a little bit more authority in the air, maybe to be flying a little bit more aggressively. So that's what this is intended for. So basically they give you a little bit more power to sort of give you a little bit more leeway in terms of what you can do with it. But this is not a freestyle quad. If your goal is to do freestyle FPV, don't get this. Get a 5-inch, something bigger, something without prop guards, because the prop guards with all that weight at the end, basically at the end of the arms here, that really has a big effect on the flight characteristics, and one that's not really suited for freestyle flying. And of course, this is definitely not a racer at this weight. It's faster than the original version, but you aren't going to be smoking any 5-inch racers at your next FPV race with this one. So yeah, that's definitely not for that. But that's what this, basically the biggest complaint about the original version was the lack of power. And I think it's mainly for things like handling wind and having a little bit more authority in the air to make quicker maneuvers. You can fly a little bit faster. You can fly a little bit more aggressively. So, if you need something like this, you like the original CineLog35, but some of those things like the lack of power and the lack of authority in the air were things that were negatives to you. This might be something that you might actually prefer, because this form factor is pretty nice in terms of the, as I mentioned in the original video, very basically got a 3-inch Cinewhoop profile and a 3.5-inch prop setup with more power. Anyway, check out the links in the video description if you want to check this out and where you can pick this one up. That's going to do it for this one. Talk to you guys in the next video.